Hey guys, Paul here at Impulsive Culinarian. Welcome to part 4, the final edition of the Christmas menu series. I'm so glad that you've tuned in for the dessert episode where I'm going to be telling you about my maple pecan pie recipe. Pecan pie is a great holiday classic. Christmas and Thanksgiving, this gets made a lot in our house, okay? It's basically sugar pie with a bunch of nuts on top. Of course, always gluten-free and dairy-free. Now here's the ingredients you're going to need. Alright, so let's start with the pie crust ingredients. This is a recipe that I've already done, guys. You probably know it already, but let's go through it. 1/4 cup of brown rice flour, 1/4 cup of masa harina flour, 1/4 cup of white rice flour, 1/4 cup of tapioca flour, 1/4 cup of potato starch, 1/2 teaspoon of guar gum, 1/3 cup of coconut oil. Don't melt it, leave it solid, that's the trick. 2 tablespoons of honey, preferably organic, 1 egg, also preferably organic, and 1 tablespoon of cold water. All right, so let's get into the pie filling ingredients for this maple pecan pie. 4 eggs, 1/2 cup of maple syrup, the real thing, guys, 1/2 cup of corn syrup, 1/3 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of regular or light sugar, 1/4 cup of dairy-free margarine, which you're going to melt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1 1/3 cup, around 150 grams of pecan halves. Let's go make a pecan pie. Part 4 of the Christmas menu series has finally arrived. So you're watching this on the Saturday of the weekend just before Christmas. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of you guys, and thank you for watching. This is a really great recipe that comes together quickly, okay? Basically, it's a bunch of sugar, a couple of eggs, you throw it in a pie shell, and bake it for an hour. So let's get started. I'm not going to go into huge detail with the pie crust because you've seen me do it a bunch of times. I'll put up the link to the original recipe up here if you want to have a look. There's a video that takes you through all step by step. But basically, I'm going to do the quick version in my food processor. Let's make a pie crust. So there's the pie crust ingredients, guys, all laid out on that parchment paper. I'm going to roll it out, get it into a pie plate. Okay, so there's another fast-forward version of one of my pie crusts, guys. I'm going to put this in the freezer while I'm preparing the filling to go into this pie. Okay, so once that pie crust is in the freezer, guys, you want to preheat your oven to 375. Now, honestly, guys, the pie shell, hardest part of this recipe. The rest of it, get yourself a medium to large size mixing bowl. All of the rest of the ingredients, except for the pecans, get them into this bowl. So the first thing in the bowl, guys, you want to put those 4 eggs in so that you can give them a whisk and combine them before adding the rest of the stuff. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You're going to whisk at the end anyway. But start with the eggs. All right, so go ahead and whisk those eggs together really well. Scrambled eggs. Let's get a whole bunch of sugar. 1/2 cup of real Canadian maple syrup. Yes, indeed. 1/2 cup of corn syrup. 1/3 cup of brown sugar. Then 1/4 cup of light or golden sugar. Next, you want to get a 1/4 cup of dairy-free margarine. Measure that out. Get it into a heat-safe bowl, microwave it for around 30-40 seconds. Once it's good and melted, add that, stir it in to the rest of your egg mixture. Okay, so now that your margarine is melted, just before you add that, you're going to be whisking anyway, and you don't want to cook any eggs when you add that hot margarine. So add your teaspoon of vanilla extract now, and then slowly pour in the margarine and whisk everything together so it's thoroughly combined. Whisk away. All right, so really whisk this together well, guys. Make sure it's nice and smooth. So there's a well-whisked egg and sugar mixture, guys, with a little bit of vanilla extract. We're going to wait until our pie shell is good and frozen before we add this into the center. While we're waiting for that pie crust to freeze, guys, it only took us 5 minutes to put this together, and it needs a good 15 minutes in the freezer to really get nice and solid, okay? So let me tell you about pecans. If you want to add more than 1 1/3 cup, go right ahead and infuse that whole mixture full of pecans throughout. I like to use just enough to put on the top and leave that mixture in the middle, just a solid creamy layer, okay? So if you want to add more, feel free. Otherwise, 1 1/3 cup is good enough just for the topping. Another note about the dairy-free margarine. I've never come across an unsalted dairy-free margarine. If you use a product that has no salt, then to this filling, you want to add sort of a pinch of fine sea salt just to give a little bit of that extra kick of flavor. Otherwise, you don't need to add salt, especially since most of these dairy-free or soy-free products, they got enough salt in them as it is. So there's your ingredient mixture. Let's wait for the pie shell to freeze. Okay, it's not completely frozen, but it's been in the freezer for at least a good 10 minutes. So it's nice and chilled. I'm confident putting that into a hot oven. I'm going to give my filling one last whisk to make sure that everything is nice and combined. I'm going to pour it into my pie shell. All right, so get your 1 1/3 cups of pecan halves and just sort of gently lay them around in a pattern along the top of your filling. Takes you longer to put the pecans on the pie than it does to make the filling, or even the pie crust. All right, so I've got around a 1/4 cup of these left. You know, I could have put some inside the mixture. It really depends on your personal taste, guys. Just as long as, for me personally, I've got enough to cover it, make it look nice. If you want to add more inside the filling, go right ahead. Let's have a look. So it literally takes longer to place all of these, right? Making my concentric circles. You can do whatever pattern you want, but to me, that's the typical way to do a pecan pie. All right? Whatever your pleasure. Let's get ready to put this in the oven. All right, so you want to bake this in the center rack at 375. Usually it takes 1 hour, but you want to check it at around 45, 50 minutes. You can give the pie a little bit of a jiggle. If it's very, very set and just jiggles a tiny little bit at, say, 50 minutes, you can take it out. It's no problem. Or if the crust is starting to brown, you may need to put a tinfoil tent just around the edge of the crust. So many variables. But 80% of the time, if everything goes well, put it in the oven for 1 hour and forget about it. See you in 1 hour. So guys, I have to admit, after 30 minutes, I noticed that the edges of my pie crust were really starting to brown like a lot because I didn't freeze it enough. Part of the pains of being impulsive. So I made a makeshift tinfoil tent. Let me show you. So as you can see, guys, I made a makeshift tinfoil tent to protect the edges of my pie crust. I want to leave it in for at least 50 minutes to let that pie set, but I don't want the pie crust to burn. My fault, I didn't let it freeze. All right, so 50 minutes has expired. Now, because of my whole pie crust situation, I'm going to take it out right now. Well, now there's a beautiful looking pecan pie, if I do say so myself. Now, because I did not freeze the crust, sure enough, it did really brown quite a bit. But thankfully, I noticed it at 30 minutes, and I was able to salvage that. But look at that beautiful pie. And it has set nicely, the little pecan arrangement that I've made. I think it's a pretty good pie to display. Oh, there's a fantastic finale to a 4-part Christmas series, guys. An incredibly delicious maple pecan pie. Now the hard part, you gotta let it cool. It's important to make this early in the day or even the night before because not only will it liberate your cooking schedule for the big event, but you gotta let it cool for I'm talking a few hours. That's the hard part, okay? It really has to gel. And you can leave that on the counter or in the fridge as you prefer. But really, you just want to let it cool and forget. Guys, my name is Paul from Impulsive Culinarian. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you did, guys, hit that like button and be sure to subscribe. Because after the big New Year event, there's a whole bunch of brand new recipes that I can't wait to share with you guys. I got such big plans. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Don't miss what's coming in 2018. And with that, I want to wish you a very happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and whatever that you celebrate, I hope that you have lots of health, prosperity, and wonderful times with your family. I'll see you in the next video, guys, next year. Happy New Year!